Hello, and welcome to today's masterclass, where you are going to discover how beliefs are formed, how to overcome limiting beliefs, and the steps to create a healthy, authentic lifestyle. In the first couple of months of my 30th birth year, I have finally succumbed to my own bullshit. I was sitting in the middle of a parking lot, crying one evening after a 2-hour workout at my local 24-hour fitness club. For me, this was literally the night I'd never forget. I was coming to terms with the fact that I didn't know who I was. I felt so uncomfortable in my own skin, so uncertain of myself, what to say, how to interact, constantly overthinking every experience. I had become someone I didn't recognize anymore, and I didn't like it. It's interesting because now that I'm not that scared person anymore, I can sit in this new lived experience and actually look at the past version of myself and remember feeling fear, but I definitely didn't recognize, nor was I conscientious of this at that time. I felt a huge amount of fear actually, and confusion. I sat there crying for minutes until something inside of me ignited like a fire. I decided that I was going to find the formula to living a healthy, abundant life. I decided that I wanted to find the formula to having a healthy marriage. I decided that I was going to learn and adopt whatever skills necessary to thrive. I was going to acquire the skills that I needed to create a personal new reality. I told myself I was willing to do whatever it takes to get the results that I only dreamed of living. Somehow, I believed it was possible for me. I needed to choose and do whatever I needed to do to fall in alignment with that goal of living a peaceful, purposeful, healthy life. Something inside of me just said, why can't I? Why can't I live a successful life? Why can't I experience a man loving and being faithful to me? Out of all the men in the world, there isn't one that's faithful. And if he knew of the type of woman and quality that I possess, I know he'd surely be faithful to me. Like I actually began to encourage myself. It's very strange. In the lowest moment of my life, it's like, I wouldn't even say it was me actually, but something bigger than me was encouraging me and saying, no, this is not it. This is not who you are. You're worth so much more than this. What's inside of you is so much bigger than this very moment. You can't quit. You can't stop. Kind of thinking about it saddens me a little bit because I remember the emptiness that I felt in that moment. I remember the pain and the disconnection, the disappointment that I felt about myself and life. Honestly, I didn't feel that there was a window of opportunity to my closed door. I didn't see how there was a lesson in my mess. I didn't see how my setback was really preparing me for my comeback. I really didn't see the essence of hope nor feel it until that night. That night, I birthed belief. The first initial step I took to self-healing was education. I don't know what initially prompted me to educate myself besides being led by a greater phenomenal infinite power and energy. I began to educate myself on emotional intelligence, childhood trauma, and behavioral health. I also hold a Bachelor of Science degree in psychology. I'm a licensed life coach. I've worked with at-risk children, and I've always had a passion for people and purpose. In today's masterclass, I'm going to share with you what I've learned on my self-healing journey and how, with the application of this information, these tools and principles, you also will have the necessary equipment to creatively, powerfully, and definitely create your new personal reality. And at the very least, if you can't do all of that great stuff I just mentioned, you will definitely be able to leave with tools to help you strengthen your conscious awareness, build healthier connections, and live life on your own terms. Does that sound fun? Let's talk about what a belief is and how beliefs are created. What is a belief? A belief is a practiced thought rooted in an individual's lived experiences and are assembled over years of thought patterns, which require exterior and interior validation to grow. Beliefs about ourselves, past or future, our weaknesses, personality are our filters placed over the lenses of how we view our external world. The more you practice the same thoughts, the more the brain hardwires these patterns of thoughts to make it easy to access, sort of like a file cabinet. Our practiced thoughts become our lived experiences. The brain creates defaults to these thought patterns, also known as the programs we live by. This is especially true if the thoughts are developed around stress and or trauma, similar to strong emotions. When our continual thought patterns attach to a huge emotional response, such as stress, this disrupts the nervous system and will create an inner confusion within ourselves, also known as our triggers and our emotional addictions. Repeating a thought over and over makes it easier to default to those same thoughts and emotions. The more you think something, the more likely you are to believe it. It doesn't mean that the thoughts are factual, even though they may feel real. The thoughts feel real due to your habitual practices of them. Our programs determine our quality of life. If you are living by a poverty program, you won't experience wealth or abundance. And if you do, it will be short-lived until you change the program, which is to renew the mind. According to the Bible, Scripture says in Romans 12:2, do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Another scripture says, you cannot put new wine into old wineskins. You can have a new life with that old way of thinking. The great philosopher Albert Einstein said, insanity is literally doing the same thing and expecting a new result. So 5 generations of poverty, yet no one has decided to attend college or gain a trade, become an entrepreneur. 7 generations of unwed single mothers, yet no one will wait to marry or obtain a substantial commitment from a committed partner. The story of pain is the same. So the question is, who will be strong enough to break the cycle? Who is willing to be uncomfortable temporarily for a permanent transition in their bloodline, family, finances, and life? What would it take for you to do something different? Stand out. Be willing to be the one that they don't understand. Be willing to be the one that they talk about. Dare to stand out long enough to see change. Let's talk a little bit about why it can be so difficult to change core beliefs and how our childhood stories are created. Discovering childhood stories. Core beliefs. Core beliefs are our deepest insight of our identity. These are our narratives about ourselves and lived experiences. So for example, I'm emotional. I'm a victim. I'm easy to talk to. I'm really good at math. I'm poor at science. I'm a loner. I'm popular. I'm outgoing. These stories about ourselves create the profile to our personalities. Core beliefs are mostly developed from our childhood environment, parents, home, community, and shaped by our trauma. Once a core belief is formed, you participate in something that's called a confirmational bias. Confirmational bias is when we look for things externally to validate our beliefs, rather than question our belief and why you created that belief. Side note, children do not have this mental ability to self-reflect. So I'm excluding children under the ages of 7. When participating in a confirmational bias, information that doesn't support your beliefs, we just simply delete, ignore, or possibly distort. So an example of this would be, let's say you're talking about cars today and you say that you want a G-Wagon. And now suddenly you start to notice G-Wagons on the road. Well, the reason why you're noticing G-Wagons on the road, it isn't because they just mass produce G-Wagons in your local community. It's because the mind has deleted, distorted, and generalized the road, what's on the road, so that you see what it is that you want to see. So the mind knows that you want a G-Wagon. So it deletes the vehicles you don't need to see that aren't a G-Wagon, distorts your view, your perspective of what you see, to eliminate, generalize the other vehicles, what is on the road, so that you primarily see what it is that the mind wants you to see. Information that doesn't agree with your core beliefs you accept as true. Doesn't mean it is. You are seeing what you want to see versus what is there, based on your beliefs, based on your life map, your accumulated experiences, and how you were shaped by those experiences. An example, if you have a belief you are unworthy, you may see a career opportunity such as a promotion as something that isn't for you and self-sabotage out of your fear or lack of self-worth. Next, many of us then participate in something that's called a negativity bias. A negativity bias is where we tend to prioritize and or value negative information over positive information. So for example, perhaps you get a positive performance review. You are happy for 2 minutes and then forget. If you get a negative review, you're talking about it for 2 days or 2 weeks. This bias is a part of how the mind operates. The subconscious mind must organize the information it receives daily over the span of our lives. Because the mind receives so much information over its period of time, it can possibly remember everything over a lifetime and every experience. It's impossible. So the mind organizes / programs itself by generalizing, deleting, and distorting information that it receives. The mind also prioritizes the information it chooses based on our beliefs. And again, our beliefs are just our practice thoughts. So as we practice certain thoughts and emotions, hardwiring the mind, making it easy to access patterns of thoughts and ideology, therefore making the mind's job easy to access the information it has chosen, like file cabinets, again, based on those lived experiences. So we learn and store in our subconscious mind what we see, experience, and process as a child in our developmental environment. The problem with this is if you aren't consciously aware of your programs, most likely you'll continue to suffer from them. Becoming aware of your programs gives you the power to change your experiences. If you can get to the root and swap the experience or old emotion for something that serves you better, you could potentially free yourself to a higher consciousness and quality of life. The way you do this is by accessing the unconscious mind. I'm going to briefly talk about survival mode. Everyone's main objective is love, and love equates to safety, being fed, and generally cared for. When that need isn't met, we enter into something that's called a fight or flight response, when the brain scans the environment and sees the environment as a threat everywhere. When in fight or flight, the body devotes resources to managing stress, survival, and that suffers a child's brain. So for example, if we had a gazelle and a lion, and the gazelle was minding its business, grazing in the wilderness, and then sees a lion, that gazelle's nervous system immediately goes into hyper function and sees its environment as a threat everywhere. So imagine that that gazelle is now in survival mode, seeking to find safety. Once the lion stops chasing the gazelle and the gazelle realizes that he is now safe again, he or she is now safe again, that gazelle nervous system de-escalates, down-regulates, and returns back to its normal state of being. Now, the issue or the difference in human beings is, let's just say that the lion is your mother-in-law, and your mother-in-law is coming to dinner, and now your nervous system is hyper-functioning. Maybe your palms are sweating, maybe that looks like feeling a knot in your throat, maybe that looks like becoming anxious. And that's happening because the nervous system believes that that you're at risk, you're not safe, something's going on, and most likely you aren't feeling safe because of the thoughts that you're having around the event that's going to happen but hasn't taken place. And when we hyperventilate and worry over what hasn't happened that might happen, we are placing ourselves in the position of the gazelle being chased by a lion. Now you've disrupted your nervous system before your mother-in-law even shows up, and then when she shows up, your nervous system is disrupted, and then when she leaves, it's disrupted. So you just spent maybe 10 or 12 hours with a disrupted nervous system, right? And what is a habit? A habit is the way we create habits is practicing a behavior over a period of time. A habit is a behavior that's been practiced over a long period of time. So if you practice placing your nervous system in a heightened state over long periods of time, could becoming anxious become a habit, could worrying become a habit. And if you do this on a daily basis, it might even become a part of your personality because you've been doing it for so long. A parent withholding anything from the child that hinders survival sends the child's nervous system into a fight or flight response. And again, what do we equate love to? Love is safety, being fed, and generally cared for. So for example, abuse is the opposite of love, and if a child is living in an abusive environment, that child is suffering as the child is continuously in a fight or flight response. And that could create an anxious child, an overperformer, an insecure child, a depressed child, and that's just to name a few. When the child asks for things and receives harsh responses such as, "That's not in the budget, you haven't earned it," the child concludes that I'm not worth it, or I'm asking for too much, I'm not grateful enough, I'm greedy or selfish, when possibly the parent just can't afford it and shouldn't project that onto the child. Sometimes the child's reality can be too traumatic or painful to understand or process, and therefore the child will create an alternative story around the experience. Based on the child's level of understanding, this is done as a way to minimize the pain or experience in an effort to survive the experience. So, for example, if a child feels neglected by a parent, the child may create an alternative story that the parent has an important position or career, making the excuse for the parent's absence as the child is unable to articulate the harder truth. Parents have a whole life outside of the ones the child knows. Children aren't able to articulate the parent's life as their minds aren't cognitively developed enough to process such information before the ages of 7. Because children are limited in their understanding people and the world, they create stories around behavior and experiences in order to cope with the experience as a protective measure. By going into the subconscious mind, revisiting those experiences and emotions to change your choices, to change the story, to give yourself the opportunity you didn't have as a child and make it right, to integrate the old self with who you are today. What experience or happened that caused you to decide the narrative was true about you? That negative or limiting belief. You can change that belief, program, or choice at the unconscious level by choosing a new choice. So if you have a limiting belief or program, "I can't do this, I'm too fat, I'm not smart, I'll never," yet at the conscious level you believe the opposite. So for example, saying affirmations, it is going to most likely take years for you to change because you have a belief that you are fighting against. You have to change the belief completely to see the results of the words you are saying. So I have a few tools, 6 actually, that can help you do this in your life. So tool number 1, meditation. What this looks like for me is I take 5 minutes I set aside 5 minutes, find a quiet space, and I like to listen to my thoughts. Now, if you quiet your mind, and for most that might be difficult, so sometimes if I have the air conditioner going, or if I hear a faucet dripping or the birds outside, I try to listen to the birds chirping, or I try to listen to the air conditioning, and that's how I quiet my mind. And I want you to recognize that if you hear your thoughts, that means you're separate from your thoughts. Because if you can hear them, that means you're not them, right? I listen to my thoughts, and then I use like a journal. I write in my journal about that experience. So after the 5 minutes, I write about the thoughts that I had, and who do those thoughts sound like? Do those thoughts sound like your father? Do those thoughts sound like your grandmother? Do those thoughts sound like your ex-boyfriend? Do those thoughts sound like that school teacher from 5th grade? Number 2, practice mindfulness and intentional living. Mindfulness looks like paying attention to who you are in any given moment. So let's say that you're stuck in traffic. You might begin, instead of reacting like you may in the past have done, you start to actually pay attention to what's going on when you're in traffic and when you want to react to maybe someone cutting off or something. Instead of reacting, you might say, "I noticed that my palms got sweaty, and I noticed that on the back of my neck the hair stood up. I noticed my stomach started to hurt. I noticed that I started to feel aggression in my stomach or a knot in my stomach." That's mindfulness, the practice of being mindful of who you are and how you're showing up. Number 3, practice being conscientious and present. So that might look like in conversation, instead of thinking about what you want to say to the person who's speaking to you, when they're speaking, you actually take out the time to be present, to not think about anything else but what is being said, so that you can give a clear and concise rebuttal, or just even be a good listener. I think that being an effective listener is a good skill to have in life. And number 4, application, daily habit, practicing these things that we've talked about in this masterclass, and what you might hear in the articles or in my lectures, practicing these new tools, putting them into daily practice. So journal writing, that might look like journal writing every day. That might look like writing in a gratitude journal every morning. daily habit. The only reason why we're so good at the habits that don't benefit us the most is because we've practiced them most often. But the habits that do benefit us the most, if we practice them just as often, they would be more of a benefit to us as well. Number 5, consistency and intentionality. Being intentional with your day and your time. Time is an asset, so why waste it, right? Money is your asset. You don't waste. Well, some of us do have wasteful money habits, but be intentional. Be intentional with your goals. Be intentional with your life. I think that that's a healthy way to even build self-competency, to build self-trust, being consistent and getting the job done, reaching your goals, even one goal at a time. You can't build a house in one day. It's one brick by brick, right? One step at a time. 6, support. If that looks like coaching or any other form of an empathetic listener, you might even have a close family member that you can trust, but any type of support while you're on this self-healing journey will really help you get through those times where you might feel lonely, or you might feel like you've just changed so much and I can't relate to anyone. What does that look like? Finding someone to support you in those lower points. And this brings us to the end of our masterclass. To learn more, check out the links below. I have a few links for you of some up and coming programs that we have currently available on our website and thinkofit.com, Talk on Topics School. We have a program that's called Becoming Your Authentic Self, Destroying Limiting Beliefs, and Heal from Emotional Trauma, Toxicity, and Betrayal. If those topics sound interesting to you, those programs are available right now. You can purchase them. We have a few purchase plans that are available, so you don't have to spend it all at one time. Also, each program has a sneak peek. You can check out, preview a chapter of the program before you even purchase it. Isn't that a great value? So you get to see the quality content and instruction that is available in each program before purchase. So check that out. Check out the program preview before purchase. Also, if you're interested in our personal development tools or self-healing tools, I have journals, workbooks, self-healing articles. You can join our community right now absolutely free. You can subscribe to our website. Go to www.talkontopics.com/shop and check out our personal development books, self-healing tools, and products. Lastly, if you're looking for a life coach, my name is Coach Lone. I would love to partner with you in change. If there's an area of life that you've been struggling in, or you've been repeating patterns in your life, you don't have to do this alone. Partner with me, Coach Lowe. If you're interested, go to www.talkontopics.com/book now, or click the link below. If you're interested in our free journal prompts, you can download those journal prompts below. I've got 3 journal prompts that will help you self-reflect and with self-discovery. Let me partner with you in change. I would love to support you on your self-healing journey. If you're interested in coaching for a limited time, when you book your free discovery call, get your half an hour power for free, you get your first session absolutely free, and that's for a limited time. I want to see you there. Again, the link is below, or you can go to www.talkontopics.com/book now. And I look forward to seeing you there.